We can probably make a start.
That's fine because Adj and I are going to talk about for 35 minutes about the defensive qualities of the Liverpool Football Club.
No, we're
Well,
not.
we're not. No, we're not. Okay. Yeah. Do you want to give a quick background to yourself and what your role is within Zurich? Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I've noticed some of the familiar faces on the screen. Leeson is definitely one I notice, and we talk regularly. So some of you may know me, some of you may not. My name's Sahota. I'm a strategic protection specialist here at Zurich. That's the fancy title they've given me. It's a national account manager role where I manage the relationship between Zurich and Primus, but that's not just my only role. My background is that I've been in financial advice sector for this is actually my 25th year, and I work very closely with advisors, our strategic partners, and the idea is I want to help you grow your protection strategies, position value effectively. I think that's really important, and there's all sorts of complexities, and I want to try and help you navigate around things like underwriting, product selection. But my role is very much partner focused, and that's supporting advisory firms, network service providers, and developing things like best practice processes, and just ensuring that the protection propositions that we offer help advisors deliver good outcomes for your clients, really.
Cool. So I mean in terms of sales process, I mean we've been around this market a long time and there's been a lot of people who've got different sales processes. What's your ideal one? What's the best one you've ever seen?
Great question, especially for a Monday morning. So I would say an ideal sales process is definitely advice led. It needs to be simple and it needs to be consistent. Okay. It starts with so what I find in with protection is there's some advisors that are very transactional. So a protection case comes on their desk and they react to it. For me, I would say an ideal sales process and one of the best I've seen starts with a proper holistic fact find. And then it moves more into, I suppose, a needs-based conversation that will educate the client on risks. Because let's be honest, every client's different and their understanding of protection is different. Some get it, some don't. Some may have come to you because they've been told they need protection. Some have come to you because they kind of understand the risks. So I think the conversation definitely needs to be on the client risks, and then lead with value. And when I say lead with value over price. You know, we're very quick, or one thing I've noticed, there are advisors very quick to kind of go straight to the portal, look at price, and then price kind of dictates the whole journey or the next direction. Lead with value. Lead with value before price. Okay. And that should also incorporate things like pre-underwriting, clear expectations on timescales. You know, one of the conversations me and Neil have just had is that there are some uh, very long timescales within the industry, not mentioning any names, but you know, have that clear expectation on timescales, regular updates for the customer, and most importantly, I would say it ends with a protection solution that's one, affordable, two, relevant, and then three, more importantly, I think you need to make sure that you incorporate that that's reviewed regularly because circumstances change. So just one final thing on that is I get asked, or one of the conversations that we kind of comes up time and time again is vulnerable clients. And the more and more we kind of look at vulnerable clients, we kind of think it's someone who's elderly or someone who's disadvantaged. I don't think that's the case. I think, you know, someone who's a vulnerable client is someone that you've not gone to see, you know, regularly. So the moment you lose touch with that client, you've written the protection policy, and maybe you haven't revisited, or had that conversation with them for a few years. That's the stage I think that clients can become vulnerable. So I would definitely say make sure that you incorporate into your sales process that you definitely review client circumstances regularly because they do change.
Yeah, because I was thinking you should always invest the time personally. I mean, what I find remarkable is that the amount of money on a life insurance or a critical illness or an income protection policy that a customer spends over the term is the equivalent to probably a small price car.
Yeah.
And imagine how much effort we put into selling a car, and you're like, I mean, it's fairly equivalent, isn't it? You're sort of, people can be paying 25,000 pounds over the course of the policy. So take the time, invest the time into it because it can make a big difference. No one ever complains about policy when it pays out. What has Zurich got planned? I mean, are you making some inroads into the intermediary market? What sort of things have you got planned for this year?
So that's a really interesting question because the last few years have been very product focused. So when I say product focused, I think back to 3 years ago. We had our CI launch. 2 years ago, we had our Accelerate contract came out, and last year we really kind of revitalized our income protection, which actually has seen some really good wins. So for me, having been here for 25 years, I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. I've seen the times where our proposition was strong in certain areas but not so strong in others. But 2026 for me is all about one strength, making sure that we speak to all advisors about our full suite of products. Now I would say we should be winning menu business. If someone's writing an IP policy, or someone's writing an IP policy and a life policy and a life or CI policy, there is no reason why one of those products are going somewhere else and one of them is coming to us. We are really in a good place now where the proposition is strong. Okay. So, we're definitely going to be talking to all of our strategic partners about, our full suite of products, and menu is definitely going to be leading with that. However, that's not to say that just because we're not concentrating on products, that there's not other things that we can improve so that we can help the advisor journey. So I think 2026 is definitely about strengthening advisor capability, improving the customer journey is really important. So we're going to be continuing to refine things like our underwriting rules engine. We're going to expand specialist support teams. We're definitely going to keep looking at the product enhancements that could, just widen the eligibility for certain clients and just reduce any kind of friction. So we've had consumer duty in the last, year or two, and one of the things that we want to try and make sure is we feel that we've got one of the best or most consumer duty friendly propositions. Okay, but we want to just make that a lot more clear so that advisors get it, our strategic partners get it, but ultimately clients get it. Your average person who's walking down the street needs to understand what protection policy they have, what the terminology means, and just reduce that friction. Okay. We're also going to be investing heavily in advisor tools. I think that's really important. And that's things like indicative underwriting, smarter client engagement materials that will make the protection conversations easier, so that you could go on, you could use a tool, it produces maybe a one-page report or a document, and that's really easy to understand. It's clear, it's more personalized, and you can take that into a client conversation. You can put it onto your recommendation file so that when it goes to compliance, it's quite evident of why you've chosen Zurich. And all of this that I'm mentioning should help you as advisors open more conversations, and that's around things like family protection, income security, and even business continuity. If you're looking to get into business protection, there's lots of opportunities there. So we're really going to be enhancing things to make the advisor journey a lot more simple and easier for you.
Yeah, because I think, I mean, I was quite like the time when you launched the CI changes, and I think if I remember rightly, one of your product guys had an experience with his son in pregnancy and was really keen to then have that covered in within the terms of the policy. And I think it's always quite nice to have something about an insurer that relates to the customers. If you've got first time buyers who start to plan a family,
Yeah.
then have that conversation about pre-pregnancy cover and what could happen during that process. And you guys have got that built in, haven't you?
We've got it built in. I would say when you start looking at your additional benefits, that's not. I mean, the guy who's invented global treatment for Aviva, and the guy who's invented Accelerate for Zurich, um, he invented that, or he came up with that because his daughter had a brain tumor. So, a chap called Sam Wells. Now, when he started that Aviva, for example, that's not changed. That global treatment is still looking the same as when he launched it back in 2017. So, you know, going on to the pregnancy stuff, as well as the Accelerate, a lot of what we're launching is because of first hand examples, which you just mentioned, Neil. But that then gives us the insight of knowing what it's like being in that horrible position where you've got potentially a child, or you've got you know um, your partner who's suffering with pregnancy difficulties. So a lot of what we're launching it with that first hand experience of someone going through it and knowing exactly what the journey's like, what the support needs to be like, so that we then get it right for every customer.
Yeah, it's all about painting pictures in the day, isn't it? You've got to put the customer into the frame and say this is what would you like to happen if this were you? What experience
Yeah.
would you like to have? Yeah, so let's talk income protection for a second. Big growth space. I think when my old days, it used to be about 5-6% of the market. It's looking best part of what, 20% now, 18-20% of the market. What's turnaround for that is because what, COVID, do you think everyone got a bit more experience of illness causing a drop in income? Do you think that'll carry on?
Yeah, so I definitely think it'll carry on. I mean, I can only talk about. I mentioned earlier that we launched our new IP product last year. Okay, prior to that, when I looked at the MI, I think 3% of the overall business mix that we received from Primus was income protection. When we reflected at the end of 2025 and we saw that what the overall business mix is, um, it was nearly 10%. Okay, it was just short of 10%. So for me, one, that's illustrated that what we've done, the changes that we've done with income protection, is definitely worthwhile, and Primus advisors are definitely kind of utilizing our product. But two, that the opportunity is there. So we had this mindset of, obviously we get NMG data, okay, so we see what the market does, and we could see that income protection was on the rise, but I don't think it's ever been at the rate that we feel it needs to be. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever done their RO5, but one of the things that you learn in RO5, the exam, is the order of financial needs, and PIPSI is an acronym that's used, where they kind of say that the order is protection, then income protection, okay, then pension, savings, and investments. But for me, income protection should be the first place. Let's be honest. If you've got a client, what is the likelihood of them becoming ill higher than them getting a critical illness or dying? It's much higher possibility that somebody's going to become ill first. So the income protection is really, really important. Okay, we've got a calculator which, to be honest, I don't think we've gone out to the masses, and it's a bit of work that we need to do with Primus actually to just show advisors how useful this tool is, because it gives you the probability game as well. It gives you some really big, interesting stats that hammer home the message of why income protection is important. So it's called the risk reality calculator. Happy to send a link to Neil, and Neil can share it with everybody afterwards. Honestly, it's really user friendly. And when I say user friendly, it's not one of those that, if you're an iPhone user and someone gave you a Samsung, it's a different language. It's really, really, I actually think my 13-year-old daughter could probably navigate through this risk reality calculator. It's really easy. You just put some information in about 5 or 6 different boxes, and it produces a report. But to your note, Neil, it really hammers home the message of income protection and the opportunity that's there. So yeah, it's definitely something we
Yes.
should be.
People always wonder, don't they, about why it's a little bit more expensive, and it's just a typical thing, isn't it? I think it's you 4 times more likely to claim on an IP policy than a kick policy, and
Oh yeah,
13 times more likely to claim on an IP policy than a life policy. I think
yeah,
it's not a simple, it's quite a simple argument, isn't it? It's a bit more expensive because you're more likely to use it. than anything else. It's quite simple. Tech. There's a lot of tech at the moment. I know you guys have. There's a lot of people talking about how AI is going to wash through underwriting books, and you're going to get an AI generated quote. I take it that's not your journey at the moment. You're more keen on the people to people thing, yeah.
Definitely. So it's really interesting because when do you not go to an event now where there's not someone talking about AI? You know, there's always someone talking about AI at the moment, whether it's ChatGPT, Copilot, or whatever. And we probably all use it in our day-to-day lives. I definitely think there's a there's a part where it should, you know, be there to help advisors. So for me, technology should speed up things like admin, reduce form filling, give advisors better insights, but it should never replace the advisor and client relationship for me. Okay, so tools like digital underwriting, smoother applications, smarter data capture, they are all things that help advisors spend less time on process. Okay, and that's great, and I definitely think there's a place for that, and definitely more time should be given on meaningful client conversations. Okay, so for me, tech advance it definitely enhances trust by improving clarity, but the human conversation is definitely what builds the understanding and triggers that emotional engagement.
Yeah, someone told me the advisory journey is a bit like I mean, if you go to a hotel these days, AI has been in hotels for years. It's been the doors that automatically open when you walk up to them. So the AI is like the doors, but you always need someone to kick the drunks away from the front door and welcome the guests into the hotel and create that atmosphere. I don't think there's how's that featuring in your sort of pre-underwriting um, opportunities, pre-underwriting process? Is that just purely individuals talking about cases rather than anybody going on to uh, ChatGPT and saying, "Will Zurich do this?"
Yeah, I would say so. So you know, we've got a pre-app underwriting tool which covers 90% of our rule engine. Okay, so we came away probably about 2 or 3 years ago from having that phone line where somebody can pick the phone up and speak to an underwriter. By the way, I know that's really frustrating because we all love to be able to speak to an underwriter and get that quick response. Just a quick bit of an idea of why we had to pull that line. We probably had about 4 or 5 firms, not mentioning any names, not Probus firms, that absolutely swarmed that phone line. And what they swarmed that phone line with was probably, let's say, about 30 pre-app inquiries a day, of which maybe 1 or 2 may come to us in the end. Now, how is that any good in terms of effort and reward for us, for them, for everybody else? Because they're trying to get onto the phone line and speak to us, but you know they've got half an hour waiting times because certain firms are swarming the line. What we have also got as part of our pre-app underwriting tool is if for some reason we don't give you an indicative decision, in the corner of the screen is a chat with an expert box. I don't know if anyone's ever used it. Um, it is real time. You're not chatting to a bot. You are chatting to an actual underwriter. Okay. We've increased the resource on that chat with an expert so that we've now got, I believe, I think it's 8 underwriters who humans. So I just want to reiterate that, not a bot, who are then chatting to you and are then able to, in real time, give you a response. Okay. It may take, 10 minutes of messaging back and forth. I mean, 10 minutes is probably a bit extreme. Let's say 5 minutes of, messaging back and forth, but you're getting that decision. You're not then on the phone line waiting half an hour trying to get through. You're not sending an email waiting for somebody to get back to you within 24 hours, 48 hours. You have an instant response. So what I would definitely urge people to do is, if you're not already doing it, use the pre-app underwriting tool. If you're not getting what you need from the pre-app underwriting tool, there's a chat with an expert box in the corner. You always get a ZPA reference when you do a pre-app reference. quote that ZPA reference, and an actual human underwriter will then be able to talk back and forth with you.
Cool. Is that transcribed and then you can attach it to the case and
Yeah,
it
yeah,
sort of gives it a secondary guarantee, yeah. Well,
yeah.
can't use the word guarantee, obviously, but the pushes it up the assurity level, yeah.
Yeah, because look, there's going to be instances, and Lisa might agree with me on this one, but there's going to be instances where you speak to a human, and a human's kind of gone, an underwriter, and they've kind of gone, look, it's likely going to be 50%. When you actually put that policy through, nothing may have changed from that initial conversation, but it might come out at 75% or 100%. So then at least you've got that audit trail so that you can challenge. Okay. And if it ever gets to that, space where you've got that grey area because somebody's told you something at Zurich, an underwriter, you've then put the policy in and nothing's changed from, what you've told us initially. If you're not getting anywhere, get onto me. I'm here to try and help you, and make things smoother for you. So if I'm not anyone's allocated BDM, but actually I'm probably everyone's BDM in that sense because I've got an overall responsibility to make sure that Neil, Craig, you advisors are all getting the right level of service from Zurich. Okay, if something's not working between Zurich and Primus, I need to be aware of it, and I need to then make sure I rattle on the right cages to get us to a space where things are. We got to think of the end consumer. Always got to think of the end consumer.
Everyone's BDM. That should go on your bottom of your business card, should it?
Yeah. Oh
There
God.
I am. Everyone's BDM.
You've
Yes.
reminded me that Kate's recorded the call, so that's
Yes.
that's going to be quoted now somewhere. But
Well, we should put a telephone number across the top of your face now, just so
I
you
mean, you
everyone's
know
give
what I
you a
mean.
ring
I'm
to.
nobody's allocated person, but
Yeah.
every national account manager is different. I want to be different to everybody else. I want to make sure that I roll my sleeves up and don't think I'm just a national account manager and I get one of the BDM. If I need to do it myself, I'll get involved and do it.
Yeah.
I've been here for 25 years, so I know the right people to speak to, and I'll make sure that you get the right level of service.
Cool. Just quickly, GP reports, are they coming back quite quickly now, are they? Or is it still a bit of a
So it's an interesting one because we get told that the NHS have got this about 80% of all surgeries are using this kind of platform where they should be coming back quickly. So we're seeing that sometimes, but we're not seeing it with others. But what we will do is we're going to continue to invest in automation. So what I said earlier is we may not be concentrating on product because we feel like our products are in a really good space, but 2026 we're going to be looking at things behind the scenes to make sure that your life is easier. Okay, so we're going to continue to invest in automation. We're going to hopefully improve the accuracy of our triage with GP reports. We're within turnaround, so we're not nowhere near some of our competitors in terms of the number of days that they're quoting. But again, if somebody's seeing something, so any examples of where something's taking a long time, then definitely get onto your BDM. If you're not getting the right answers from your BDM, then it goes back to what I said when Neil asked the last question. I can then look to see why we're not, moving fast on this. Efficiency for me is massive. Okay, but we are working closely with GP practices. There's the digital medical providers that do have a specific turnaround. Most are meeting it. Okay, but there are a few examples where we're not getting them back. But like I said, if anyone's got any examples, then fire them my way, and I'll see what I can do to try and improve things.
claims this year been up at the 100% all death claims being paid out, or is it you up to that sort of space?
Um, it's interesting because claims. So having been here for so long, claims aside, if you ever asked me what's one of the things that I'm proud of to work at Zurich, my initial response would be claims. Okay, and the reason I say claims is we 100% do try and look at trying to make sure we do pay rather than don't. Okay, and I've got lots of different examples of that, and in a second I'll share one. Okay, so we'll do things like we'll publish real life case studies. Okay, we'll obviously show our claim stats, and it's interesting because different providers try and position how they share claim stats with how they word it. Okay, and we'll talk about the reasons why claims pay helps shift perception. Okay, and it's also about setting expectations properly for me. So what I mean by that is explaining the application process, the importance of full disclosure, and the checks that we make to ensure fair outcomes. So once a client understands that claims are the core of what we do and not the exception, the objection should hopefully be a bit more clear. But going to the point of when I said, I'll show you an example. So most providers in their T&Cs have it that once someone, for example, has a critical illness, we've got up to 6 months from diagnosis to pay that critical illness claim. Okay. Now, that's probably one of the hardest times when you've suffered a critical illness, because your mind is here, there, and everywhere. You're not thinking, right, I better get onto the insurer and put a CI claim in. It could take months before you do that. So some providers may stick to that 6 months and go, no, we're not going to pay. I'll give you an example of why I know we would always pay if it took longer than that. We had a case which came in, I think it was in 2020, where somebody tried to replace a policy that was written in 2001. Now, the policy came in and we needed a GP report. When we got that GP report, we saw that the client actually had a heart attack in something like 2003, 2 years after they had originally had the policy written up. So what we did in that instance, we was like, okay, we're not going to just write a new life and CI policy, but what we're going to do is we're going to look at that old policy in 2001 that's still going, that's looking to be replaced, and we actually paid out on the heart attack. I think it was about £230,000. We actually paid out on that heart attack that never came in as a claim, bizarrely. And we paid the interest on top of what we should have paid. We paid all the premiums back and then paid interest on top of that. And then we actually said, okay, we can't give you a critical illness policy to replace. So we've done the whole payout. What was that, 19 years after? And we still wrote a life cover only policy on the replacement. So that, for me, I mean, that always sticks in my mind, that claim, because that shows that we're not just looking back in the last year or last few years. We're going back historically, several decades, shall I say, and we're paying out. So one of the things I would definitely say I'm very proud of, and I think we're very good at, is claims. So if anyone's ever having anything challenging, again, if you're not getting anywhere, escalate it to me and I'll make sure that I can speak to the right people.
Yeah, pick out some stories as well. It's interesting you talked about replacement policies, because that's quite a big thing in the pure protection review, isn't it? I know here at Primus we have sort of like a wide panel, no loaded premiums, all that sort of stuff. What do you think the key takeaways are from the pure protection review for
So
firms?
interesting. So, I mean, I mentioned it earlier about the consumer duty, and I don't think we hear consumer duty as much as we used to. But the review, for me, is ultimately designed to drive better customer outcomes, which, again, is what consumer duty is all about. And that's something that I think advisors already excel at. So, I think you do that really well. Okay. It will likely push more transparency. It will likely push things like better documentation of recommendations. And definitely one of the things I think it will push is clearer product comparisons. So, remember I talked about holistic and transactional earlier? Having that mindset of going into every protection policy with a holistic view rather than transactional will help you do all of this. Okay. But like I said, you're already doing, a lot of advisors are already doing it and you excel at it. Advisors who already take a holistic or advice-led approach will definitely find that the review strengthens their position. So they're already doing stuff really good, and a lot of what the review is pushing us towards. It's just adding and sharpening us up. So while those who lead with price or limited processes may need to adapt, I would say get on the front foot and make sure that you are being holistic and you are making sure that you're not, cutting corners or anything like that. You're dotting all I's, crossing T's, and making sure that you do a good holistic job. And I think you'll meet all your obligations of the pure protection review.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because in the general insurance world, we're quite comfortable with the old de facto star ratings, aren't we? We all know what a
Yeah.
five-star de facto home insurance policy looks like, but we don't go and do the same on kick or life, do we? We don't go, that's a two-star product or that's a five-star product, because there is quite a bit of variation in the protection space, which we don't tend to pick up on too much.
I mean, some advisors use CI Expert, some use their own knowledge. I mean, for us, we've got three different levels of CI, and I always would say, and it's an interesting one actually. So just on that point, we've got a core, an enhanced, and enhanced plus. In the first 6 months of last year, we found that with Primus, about 23% of our overall CI sales were only enhanced and enhanced plus. So what I did is I had that helicopter view and I spoke to all the different BDMs that deal with Primus advisors, and I really made a concerted effort to say, look, we need to be talking about CI better, because like you said, in terms of tools, there's some available, but some advisors may not use it. So we made that concerted effort to talk about quality CI, because it's really important that, and it doesn't have to be Zurich. What I would say is, as long as you're talking about the quality CI first, then you've got the opportunity to ski downwards should a client's budget not be able to meet the more enhanced and enhanced plus. But what we found is when we talked about enhanced and enhanced plus, I reviewed the second 6 months of 2025, and actually that 23% of all CI sales that was just on enhanced and enhanced plus, we managed to drag it up. We managed to drag it up to a good 37% of all overall CI sales. So, 2 out of every 5. We're not there yet. I want to try and get to at least 50%, because I know that clients have budgets and some you're just able to give them the core CI. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I would say is don't be in that position where an advisor from another network was in, where I done a session with him for an hour talking about CI and quality CI. What did he do? He went with the core CI and didn't speak about the enhanced and the enhanced plus, and he said, look, I'm really sorry, I've got a claim now. And the claim came in about 3 months after he wrote the policy for the client. Well, it turned out that the condition that the client had wasn't covered on the core, but it would have been covered on the enhanced and the enhanced plus. So don't be that advisor that has that client that has that CI condition that they can't claim on for their CI policy. Okay. Or at least be that advisor that has had that conversation and had it documented that you tried to talk to him about enhanced and enhanced plus, because this advisor didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
He went with the low hanging fruit, the easy option, and again was very transactional and had his fingers burnt and had that claim, which unfortunately the contract couldn't pay out on.
It's always like the wine list sale, isn't it? It's just the wine list sale, really. We've got a really good quality one, we've got one that's bog standard, and there's one in the middle that's a bit of both, which what do customers tend to go for? Typically, the one in the middle. They don't want to be seen as the bog standard, do they? But
Yeah.
I suppose also if you're not positioning the benefit in such a way that it's integral to the customer's daily sort of you know risk review, should we say, then they will go for the cheapest because they don't really want it, but they thought they've probably got to have it. It's a
But have it documented and make sure you have that conversation. So my
Yeah,
point is, always talk about the quality and ski downwards, and then have it documented that you did talk about something. The last thing you want is for the network to then challenge you that you didn't have that conversation, or the client to then come down and go, "Why didn't you sell me that?" You can then say, "Well, we did have that conversation, and it's documented here."
cool. I know one of competitor networks repositioned protection because they always thought that customers benefit from immediacy. So they want to know what they bought that's got some immediate value rather than having to die or have a heart attack or have a bad back and be off work for a couple of months. So value add benefits, they sort of moved up the pecking order a little bit. So the customer gets a conversation about value add. So I think you've got accelerate and a few other things in there. How do you see that playing a role in the conversations you have with customers?
Massively, but don't lead with it. So that's my first comment. Don't lead a protection sale with just the value add. The value add then comes into the conversation. So value add services like mental health support, rehabilitation services, accelerate. They're increasingly becoming essential parts of what I would call the protection conversation. Okay, they're definitely being expanded more with digital access, broader coverage for families, well-being support, things like that. Okay, but they should also. So I said don't lead with it, but they should also enter the conversation early, not as a selling hook, but as part of the overall value picture. Okay, so clients definitely appreciate benefits they can use today, but and not only at claim stage. One of the things that we've kind of get asked a lot is, well, why are you not offering a 24/7 virtual GP? And the way I handle that objection is because we've got Accelerate, okay, but Accelerate doesn't have a 24/7 virtual GP. A 24/7 virtual GP can actually be accessed. It's a bit like Netflix, can be accessed in several ways. If you've got a gym membership, you might even have it through your gym membership. If you're employed, you might get it through your employer. Okay. If there's all these different avenues, which I may mention now, and your client still doesn't have a virtual GP, well, here's a hidden secret that some of you may know and some of you may not. The NHS have an app called Livy. It's spelled Livi. Okay. Everyone can download that onto their phone, their tablet, and they can register for free. Okay, so you can, and the thing is, I don't think the NHS make a play on it so much because one, we know if you're calling a surgery today, you're not going to get in today. There are massive waits. But two, I don't think they want to overload the Livy system. But certainly in our world, I think it's important that we know about it and we handle that objection and we talk to clients about it so that they are aware that the Livy app is there and it can be used for free. Okay, so going back to just the final thing on the value added benefits, one of the things I noticed last year, this is really, really interesting. So one of the things I want to try and change is we've got Accelerate, but we also have fracture cover. Okay, fracture cover is £6.90 a month, and Accelerate is £9.50 a month. Accelerate is going to save lives. There's no doubt about it. What it offers, I'm not going to do a whole Accelerate plug here, but Accelerate can save lives and it covers up to 2 million in terms of costs. And actually, if your client's not taking critical illness out, I'd be looking to put it on their life cover only at least so that they understand the need for it. We sold, I think it was about 900 odd fracture cover policies with Primus last year, but yet we only sold 300 Accelerate policies. So I want to try and change that mindset of, additional benefits are good. And actually for some clients, if you're self-employed, fracture cover is really important. But for me, the Accelerate contract goes a lot further and can save lives and can give you that comprehensive, should something go wrong, we step in and try and help the client. Okay. So for that extra £2.60, and again, it may not be for every advisor. Okay. But how can we change the mindset of how, Accelerate being talked about maybe before fracture cover? And that's not to say we don't want to sell fracture cover, by the way. I'm just giving you an example of, it's interesting how we're selling one product, which is only paying out 6,000 should something happen, as opposed to something that offers up to 2 million in cover. So watch this space. I'll be doing some stuff with the network on that, and we'll be looking to do some kind of publications or one pages that try and support you as advisors on that. But for me, don't lead with the value added benefits, but bring them into the conversation early. Okay.
Is it worth just painting a picture to what Accelerate actually does? Because I think that's so we always used to think it was sort of PMI light, didn't we? That was always the
So
description we had. Yeah.
some elements of it are so we've got, so very quickly I'll go elevate a pitch on this so that we're not taking too long.
Hmm.
So Zurich Accelerate, First of all, do not compare it with Aviva's global treatment. Aviva have just a global treatment. We've got 6 elements to Zurich Accelerate, and I suppose, like the word itself, accelerate, it accelerates your medical care journey. Okay. So that if you've been diagnosed with something, or you feel that you've got a lump, and you've seen your GP, or even a virtual GP, and the virtual GP's referred you in, that's the moment you can then go into the Accelerate journey. And you would first of all then speak to a virtual consultant. Now, when I say a virtual consultant, it's not a glorified admin. A virtual consultant is either an oncologist, whether it's cancer related, a cardiologist, whether it's heart related, or a neurologist, if it's some kind of neurological condition. They will then speak to you about your journey, and you could go in any one of a few different ways. You could maybe go to a private diagnostic centre, which could cost best part of £800-900 to get diagnostics tests to get diagnosed. Okay, which again is a bit like that PMI part. Okay, you can, and there are over 100 diagnostic centres in the UK. You could get a second medical opinion. So a lot of the cancers that people are given diagnosed with, about 15% of cancer diagnoses every year are actually given with the wrong stage and the wrong grading. Okay, so you can get things like a second medical opinion. There's global treatment. There's cancer clinical trials. So all over the world, there are cancer clinical trials, and we can get you in that journey within weeks. Okay, and then the other thing which I really, really like is the genetic testing. So we can do genetic testing if you've got, so it's called precision cancer medicine. If you've got cancer, everybody reacts different to treatment, okay, and everybody's cancer is different. So we can do some genetic testing so that we can work out through that profiling whether chemotherapy is right for you, immunotherapy is right for you, radiotherapy is right for you, brachytherapy is right. There's lots of different therapies out there, and we'll get you on the right one so that it's not that trial and error game, and you're on the right pathway straight away. So like I said a little bit earlier, Accelerate can really save lives. But if somebody wants to know more, we've got sessions. If you go onto our website, we've got a new learning hub, which we've launched. So one of the things that we get asked is, where can I just go onto Zurich's website and get CPD? We didn't have this before. We launched that just prior to Christmas, a learning hub, which you can go on. You can register. You can watch it in your own time. You can look at, sessions on Accelerate. It produces the CPD automatically. It's a learning hub where you don't necessarily have to speak to your BDM. And once you've watched that, you might think, I've got a few questions, and you want to then speak to that human and get that human touch, whether it's me or whether it's one of the BDMs, we can then jump on the session. So that's kind of Zurich Accelerate at a high level. Obviously, it goes more in depth. I would say take the time to learn about it. The more you learn about it, the more confidently you're then going to be able to sell it to your clients.
Yeah, brilliant. Last question then. What one word of advice you give to the guys in terms of having that conversation? What would you say to them?
I'm not going to make this long-winded. I'm going to kind of say, so consistency. So I mentioned it right at the start, consistency. The firms that grow protection reliably are the ones that make it a standard part of every conversation, every review, every client journey, no exceptions. So I would say just be really consistent with every protection conversation. And that then, I've used the word probably a few times on this call, that then makes sure that you're, acting holistically with your clients, and that then meets your obligations, make sure that you're at the top of your game, and things like the pure protection review, it's not really going to affect you because you're doing that already. So just make sure that you have a really good, robust, consistent process, and if you need any help with that, reach out.
Yeah. So obviously the interesting thing for me is taking a little bit of time after you've spoken to the customer and just understand what you said and what the reaction was,
Yeah.
and then just build on that. Keep just turning around. Cool. And Kate, have we got any questions in the chat box, or just conscious of time?
No,
No.
that's coming, unless anybody wants to ask anything now.
Top four, Aj? Top four, do you think? No, United resurgent? No?
Do you know what? I'm
Okay.
actually trying to stay away from football talk because every Man United fan has now woken up, and as a Liverpool
Very
fan,
good. Yeah.
we're like Homer Simpson going back into the bushes. We don't want to be seen at the moment, so I'm
No.
going to avoid the football question.
Well, one word of advice: don't keep using a Liverpool mug when you drink, because that just opens you up to a little bit of insult. Um, Guys, Aj, thank you very much. Thanks for your time today, and the rest of the guys online. Please have a great day, and hopefully that's been useful and given you a bit of insight into the world of Zurich. So thank you very much. Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Cheers,
Thank you
Aj.
very much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good
See you.
week.
Bye bye bye
Later.
bye bye bye.